who is with the Social Planning Office of the City of Burnaby, and it has been really kind to come out during her day off on a Saturday to talk to us about the relationship between growth and livability and some of the social planning dimensions of how the City of Burnaby invests in the community in order to create livability and in order to address all the multitude of experiences that exist within the community. So really want to please join me in welcoming Kyra, and looking forward to her presentation.
Hi, everyone. As Robin mentioned, my name's Kyra Lubell, and I work for the Social Planning Department at the City of Burnaby. I've been in this role just a few months, though, just as a caveat to my presentation. Before that, I was a development planner with the City of Burnaby for a number of years. So I have different areas of experience that I can put into my thoughts. Today, I'm going to talk about livability, social infrastructure, and belonging. Quick overview of what I'm going to chat about today. We'll talk about what is social planning, and in all honesty, up until a few months ago, I myself wasn't even entirely sure, so I think it's worth looking at. I'm going to talk about what is social infrastructure, how is it built, what currently exists in Burnaby. Let's talk a little bit too about equity, diversity, and inclusion, which I think this group is probably very savvy about, but I will share what Burnaby is doing in that regard. And I'll leave with some questions that we're thinking about as a city and that you may want to think about as well. So what is social planning? Social planning is when local governments, nonprofit agencies, businesses, and community members work together to address social issues and build healthy, equitable, and vibrant communities. Integrated with other types of planning, social planning focuses on people and identifying needs to improve resident quality of life. Municipalities play multiple roles, from policy development and service delivery to providing funding to local community agencies and advocating to / partnering with other levels of government. What does social planning actually look like in Burnaby? A lot more than you would probably think. So I've listed all the different areas that my team has input in and works on. So with accessibility, for example, we are developing a city accessibility plan on city-owned lands. For anti-racism, EDI, or equity, diversity, and inclusion, and interculturalism, we are developing a framework and communicating that to other departments internally at the city so that they can then use that as a framework and a guide for their interactions. For childcare, we're developing design principles for city-owned sites, and we're working on policies to help implement more childcare within the city. For community resource centers, which are spaces that the city owns and leases at a nominal rate to a nonprofit group, we're doing an ongoing review of lease rates to help maintain affordability. For food and food system strategy, this is a strategic plan that the city is developing to improve the quality, fairness, and sustainability of Burnaby's food systems, and it has two main goals around food security and food sustainability. For homelessness, we're looking at ways to support initiatives to work and to establish shelters and alternative housing options. For the OCP, we're providing input as subject matter experts in our areas of expertise, which are specifically the community well-being section, agriculture in relation to food security, and a general EDI lens. For poverty reduction, we're looking at ways that we can help reduce poverty throughout the city, and we're developing a strategy. For seniors, we support them as we can and as needed. And social infrastructure and community amenities, we're doing a needs assessment and developing strategies to address gaps in that regard. Next slide is also a bit text heavy. I will try and break it down for you. So what is community and social infrastructure? The first row gives examples of infrastructure that isn't city-owned and is not operated by the city. So these are things like schools, hospitals, and places of worship. And even though we as the city don't own them, they're still really important civic infrastructure, and we're working with agencies to help support their delivery. The second row is city-owned and city-operated. So these are things like your community centers, your libraries, your parks, And we're looking for opportunities to fund and then build them within the city. The last row, the bright blue row, is the row that social planning focuses on the most. And these are typically city-owned and leased infrastructure. And these include the community resource centers, childcare, neighborhood houses, and community halls. To note, childcares and community halls are not always city-owned and leased to a nonprofit. So childcare can be privately owned and operated. Childcare is also unique. It's such a diverse opportunity. It can be small from, located in somebody's home to a large 100-space facility. So there's a range of options under childcare, but it is something that social planning really focuses on, trying to create more opportunities within the city. And at a really high level, we use policies and new development to get childcare built. Really big picture, all of this community and social infrastructure that you see here is working towards supporting and promoting the health and well-being of residents through programs, services, and activities that occur within them. So I've just pulled a few really key policies that we use to help support building any kind of infrastructure. So the social sustainability strategy was established in 2011, and it provides a framework to guide the city's decisions and resource allocations for social issues. The Child Care Action Plan was established in 2021, and it provides a roadmap to address childcare needs. The OCP, currently being updated, I'm sure you're very familiar with that. And then the Community Benefit Bonus Policy, which Erin spoke to a little bit as well in her presentation. It was most recently revised in 2020, and really it's used to help the city finance and achieve public amenities to support the population growth and to enhance the livability of our city. Amenities that are achieved through the Community Benefit Bonus Policy include parks, open space, civic facilities, the community resource centers, non-market housing, cultural facilities, childcare, etc. And really, the density bonusing approach enables the provision of additional residential density in exchange for cash in lieu within town center, or in exchange for the provision of the amenity itself. So how is it built? So moving forward, as Erin also mentioned, she did a great job laying the groundwork for me. So thank you, Erin. The province has recently passed the legislation on Bill 46, which allows the local governments to collect ACCs, or amenity cost contributions, to help fund the cost of growth-related amenities. And these will be used for things such as recreational and community centers, senior and youth centers, libraries, childcare facilities. And the city is currently working to determine what the rates will be, and they should come into effect in June of this year. And the rates that are determined will reflect the needs of the infrastructure. So what currently exists in Burnaby? I'm going to talk about these 4 main social infrastructures that social planning focuses on. So Community Resource Center. Here's a map of all the resource centers that the city owns. Anything jumping out at anybody? I will give a hint. If you look in the northeast quadrant, how many do you see? There's none. So this is a priority for the city. We are working to try to establish a community resource center in that northeast quadrant as a priority. Generally speaking, you can also see in the southeast quadrant, there's only one. So there's lots of opportunity to create more community resource centers for residents. This next slide just gives you a sense of all the different groups that operate in the 7 community resource centers. There's over 20 of them. So just to give a sense of the importance of the infrastructure. Moving on to childcare, as you can see, there's 7 city-owned childcares within the city, and they provide 333 spaces. This includes 74 spaces that are in the Rowan Center, which is number 7, which is currently under construction. So it's actually technically a little bit less spaces available today. There's 8 city and school district partnership childcare sites, and of those 8, there's 259 spaces provided. That being said, we still need more. So if we look in our childcare action plan, which if you'll recall was from 2021, so a few years back, prior to all these recent provincial legislative changes, at that time it predicted that 4,400 new spaces were needed between 2020 and 2030 to meet population growth. So how are we doing? Over the last 4 years, we've created 1,250 new spaces for all ages, and 870 of which are on school sites, which is great, but we still have a lot more work to go in order to meet that target. Over the next 6 years, we need to create 330 spaces per year for children under 5 and 120 spaces per year for school-age children. And these numbers, it's probably actually even a little bit higher given all the density and growth that the city is projected to see. So there's a lot of childcare spaces we need. How are we going to do this? So the province provides funding for childcare spaces that are created as long as they are owned by the city. So we're trying to figure out ways for the city to take more ownership of childcare facilities so that we can take advantage of the provincial funding that's available. We will be using the ACC monies that come in, and then we're hoping to see more childcare constructed within our civic projects. Within, as Aaron mentioned, the non-market housing sites, a lot of them also have opportunities to include childcare. And then also just within any new development or master plan communities, we're hoping to ensure there's placeholders and opportunities for childcare to be included. So neighborhood houses, there's 2 in Burnaby. The North House is located in private commercial space on Hastings Street, and the South House is located in Metrotown in one of the community resource centers. They're both operated by the Burnaby Neighborhood House, and they're kind of thought of as an informal community center or the living room of the community, in the sense that they provide a lot of opportunity for community connections, programming, activities, and especially they cater towards people living in high-density communities that may not have a lot of space in their homes. They do differ from a typical city community center in that most of the programming offered is for free. So yeah, they're a great asset for any community to have. Community halls. They're an interesting one. They are an asset, and they do provide an important function in creating opportunities for large community gatherings. That said, they're a little bit of an older type of infrastructure we don't see a lot of today. We know that there's one on Capitol Hill and one in Lockdale, and those are both owned by the city and leased to nonprofit community associations. There's one other one that we know of on Rumble Street, which is owned by the Lions and leased to the Neighborhood House. So moving on to a little bit of a conversation about equity. This cartoon is by Tony Ruth, and it reflects Shel Silverstein's book, The Giving Tree. And I think it really does a good job of highlighting inequality, equity, and justice. So if you look in the top right corner, one child's getting an apple easily, the other child is not getting any apples. So that is inequality, unequal access to opportunities. If you look on the next slide over, we're trying to make it more equal. They're both been given a ladder, but the ladder for the child on the right is not tall enough to even reach the tree. So just because you're providing the tools doesn't necessarily mean that you're making it equal for people. The bottom left slide now shows, okay, we're gonna give tools that are actually helpful. We're gonna give the child a ladder that can reach the tree, but the tree is leaning more towards the other child. It has fewer apples on the one child's side. Is that fair? So like what we're striving towards is the justice slide, where the tree is straight. There's a lot of apples for everybody. The ladders don't need to be modified, and we're making the system as fair and equal as possible. This is from our equity policy. It was originally adopted by Council in 1994 and recently updated in 2020. So it includes all community members, regardless of ability, age, background, ethnocultural identification, gender, gender identity, immigration status, income, heritage, life experience, housed or unhoused status, sexual orientation, and other factors, and it ensures all community members can safely and equitably access city spaces, programs, employment opportunities, and services. This next slide, I wanted to include this one because I think sometimes people think, so what? Like, so you're providing childcare. I don't have kids. Why do I care about childcare? Or you're providing community resource centers. I don't use those nonprofit services or what have you. But I think the point that I'm trying to make here is that it benefits everybody, even if not directly. And it just, social infrastructure targets different ages and different stages of life. So just using the childcare example, by creating a childcare facility, it allows women to enter the workforce because they don't have to stay home and take care of children. So we increase the workforce. By increasing the workforce, we increase the tax revenue. By increasing the tax revenue, we reduce the need for government assistance. By reducing the need for government assistance, we increase spending in the economy and we have a more robust economy. By doing so, then we can attract new families to the area and we can increase the gender equality within the city. So some things that we're thinking about in our group, and then I would encourage you to think about as you work through the assembly is what are the key social infrastructure gaps that exist? How should the city prioritize any gaps that exist? And how can they be addressed? So obviously one way is through the OCP, and we're really excited to hear from you. Maybe we need more policies in certain areas. Maybe you have some other really great ideas, and we're open to hearing them. Thank you. I'll open the floor for questions.
Okay, questions for Kyra? Got a question? Yeah.
Hello. Hear a lot of talk about housing, but I don't hear much about creating employment. Is there any kind of plan to create jobs from the city, like perhaps like going around cleaning up parks and stuff? I don't see that here. I see it in Vancouver. They have that kind of program set up.
Sorry, yeah, that's a great question. I think employment is a focus, an underlying focus of every plan. We do have I think it's called the economic development strategy or economic strategy, which was created a few years ago, which does speak to job creation. Within social planning specifically, it's less of a focus on specific job creation, but I think it ties into everything that we do in social planning. So, we're trying to look at ways to reduce poverty, and so, one of those ways is to help people find jobs. But yeah, no, it's a great question and something I think generally the city is working on, and that we can weave through every single policy piece that we put forward.
Let's take one or two more questions. We're getting close to lunch. Avalon? Here. There you go.
There have been pilot programs throughout the world, so this is something that could be done at the municipal level. Has there been any consideration for a universal basic income program? At the municipal level, we probably couldn't be like a whole lot of money, but even like smaller amounts of money at the municipal level have actually raised the economic well-being of the whole city in various city pilot programs done around the world. Would that be a possibility?
Sorry, I missed what you said. Did you say a universal income program?
Yeah, so on the city level, various places throughout the world have done smaller universal basic income pilot programs. And even with the smaller amounts of money, they have been proven to increase the economic productivity in the city itself, because people can just pay their bills more easily and buy more food, and they can more easily look for jobs and things like that. Would that be a possibility? Because they do seem to, like, long term, they do seem to generate more revenue and more stability for the cities that they've been tried in.
So, yeah, I'm not overly familiar with the term. Is it something where the city would provide money to people that apply for money and get sort of like a monthly amount of money distributed to them? Or, sorry.
In most of the project, it's a set amount of money for everyone, and you don't have to apply. It's not gate kept. It's just for literally everyone in the geographic area, and it seems to be generally helpful. And because it's not being gate kept, there's a lot of cost about the bureaucratic costs of overseeing it, when you have to, like, ordinarily you have to, like, determine whether this or that person meets that criteria, and that's a lot of paperwork and a lot of man hours. And when you don't do that, you save a lot of money.
Sounds like a really interesting concept. I'm not familiar with it, but I have noted it down with my pen, and I will look into it further because, yeah, sounds great.
Any final? Okay, we've got one more question, and then we're gonna have this as the last question, please.
Joseph here, to piggyback on Evelyn's point about a sort of a gift economy at the municipal level, I might want to mention that in the last couple of years, was it in the city of Vancouver that about 100 homeless people were given about $7,000 apiece and were tracked as to how they spent it. Now, we might expect that it was spent without much planning or frivolously. Thank you. However, they found out that the health and well-being of these people improved quite a bit, and they used a good portion of their money to help their neighbors. And in fact, so these people were actually drawing less money in emergency services due to these this relatively minor amount of giving from the municipality in this project. And now some of you are nodding saying, yes, I've read about that study. And perhaps that's what Evelyn's referring to in part.
That program, and also just lots of programs done around the world over the decades where they've done UBI, like small pilot programs and things like that. But in every case where it's been tried, there's been no negative impacts, only positive impacts.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. I've made a note of the City of Vancouver one as well. So, perfect. Thank you.
Okay, I see the...
Very cool.
It was just about the acronym you were using, EDI, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion. When the things are getting reduced, the acronyms, it just takes away any kind of it just becomes this. Yeah. Anyways, it's in your presentation, your second slide. Yeah. Anyways.
Thanks for noting that. I will pay more attention to that. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for that feedback. What we're going to do now.